Yo, Salaam nerds. It's your boy Neebs, aka Watch with Neebs, and I'm here with my co-host Jazz, aka DJ Go Go Gadget.
What?
Yeah, Go Go
Inspector
Gadget.
Gadget?
Maybe Inspector Gadget. Maybe there's another reference. Maybe we'll get into it. Maybe I'll explain to you why I did that. I like to have.
Okay.
I like to throw an air of mystery into the nicknames every now and then.
I am so confused, but okay, cool.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to have a great episode for you today. This is going to be fun. We're going to be discussing the movie Oppenheimer, something I thought was really interesting. I'm an electrical engineer, so I've studied some of this in college. A lot of this was fascinating. So, we're going to get into the history, we're going to get into the science, and we're going to get into the Easter eggs. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And while we're doing that, it's still a movie. And, there is a lot of drama. There is a lot of character development and all that stuff. Even though these are real people, they're loosely based on it, little bit not. So whether they're characters or they're real people, that's up to you to decide. And we got joining us Rocky. Rocky's been on the show quite a bunch of times. Welcome to the show, Rocky.
Thank you for having me, folks. Glad to be with Neebs and Inspector Gadget.
Yes, yes. Oh, we already got people in the comments. Someone said Einstein reminded me of a Daisy uncle. He did remind me of a Daisy uncle. I got that vibe too. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. All right, listen, this is what we'll do. We'll go around maybe 10 minutes, talk about what we thought overall about the movie. Then we'll go into spoilers. 30 minutes into this, we'll go to commercial break. 45 into it, second commercial break, and then we'll try to wrap it up in the hour.
But I think we should do a commercial break after the non-spoiler section as well.
Okay, we can do it. The only thing is sometimes Spotify doesn't let you put in a commercial 10 minutes into the show for some reason. So yeah, interesting, right? So we'll see how long spoilers go. If they go over 10 minutes, we'll do it then. All right, let's try to get people's opinions about the movie overall. Rocky, why don't you go first? You're our guest.
Well, thank you for that. I had the privilege of driving to San Antonio to watch this movie. I live in Houston for folks that don't know, and we do not have a single 70 millimeter IMAX theater in town. So I had to drive to San Antonio to go watch this, and let me say the 3 hour drive was absolutely worth it. I think it was an incredibly brilliant film, and one that we desperately needed for the summer. And I can't do much more than, sort of showering heaps of praise. And I'm sure we'll get into more of the technicalities as it goes on. But like initially, I've seen it about 3 times now. It's really, really good.
Three times.
Really
God damn, that's 9 hours of your life.
That's right. And it's 9 hours. That would be worse if I spent it living my life.
Oh,
yo, Rocky, you want to go see it for a fourth time in the Woodlands?
I'm taking my parents on Sunday, and
wow.
so I'm down to go again after that. I'm slacking on Barbie, by the way. I've only seen that twice. So I gotta get that up.
All right, don't forget to check out our podcast on the Barbie. We did that yesterday, and it's already up. It's a good one. It's a good one. Hopefully, we can beat it. We're having Barbieheimer back to back, just like the movies.
But also, can I just say what an incredible privilege we've had? Like 3 incredible summer movies in a row with like Mission Impossible, and now Barbenheimer.
The amount of A-list actors we've had in movies just this month alone is insane, right? Like, first of all, Oppenheimer is full of stars. Then we have the Barbie movie, which is full of stars, and then we have Mission Impossible, which is full of stars. Like, amazing A-list actors this whole month. It was really, really great to really see that. That definitely felt like Hollywood is back and cinema is back.
Right during the writer's strike, right?
During the writer's strike. Yeah. Awkward. Jazz, what were your thoughts of the movie?
So I too drove 3 hours to San Antonio to watch Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter IMAX.
Did you guys go together?
Unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately, I was a little too desperate for Jazz. Functions more of a regular human being than I do, so he waited till he had time on his hands. I just drove.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask Rocky if he wanted to go again, but that month just didn't work out because he actually had work for the first time ever, right? And so
Wait, Rocky had a job?
Rocky has a job now.
I do have a job, contrary to popular belief. People do pay me for stuff. Why I don't know yet, but I don't ask too many questions.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Jeff,
Yeah.
what were you saying?
Yeah, so I did also go to see the 70 millimeter production of it, and I want to compare it to the 4K IMAX laser that we do have here.
Mhm.
We have all the digital formats. The only format we don't have is like the true film format here in Houston.
Okay.
So I do want to see the 4K laser one up in the Woodlands, and I am going to compare it to that later. But the 70 millimeter version that I did see, oh my god, man! Like the details, the clarity, the contrast, just it was definitely a different experience. I didn't like the theater that much. I thought it was kind of dingy, but the image itself was amazing.
Did you watch it at the AMC or did you go to Santikos?
I went to the AMC.
I went to the AMC. Okay.
Yeah, it was inside a mall, and it's like
Yeah.
they took a old department store and converted it into an IMAX theater separate from the AMC and all the other screens they have there. It's like you have to like buy a ticket, go down the escalator, go down the hall, go down another hall, and then you get to the IMAX portion of it. It's so funny.
I think that used to be a Macy's, if memory serves.
Yeah, so
I might
they
be
converted.
wrong, but I from what I recall, that it's also the place where they screened the Alamo movie.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I watched the movie in Dolby Digital because I was doing Barbieheimer and this back to back, and it was the one where timing would work out. Also, I was in California at Comic-Con, so it was fun to see people dressed up in all the Barbie outfits, going from one theater to another. We definitely did Barbieheimer back to back. It was a lot of fun. I wore an army jacket over my pink shirt, so as soon as I come out of the theater, I take off the army jacket and then expose my pink shirt. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the experience. The hype, the memes, everything was incredible about this movie. When they released this movie, I did have mixed feelings about it, right? And I was like, okay, after watching American Sniper, I'm like, America is the only country that will show their soldiers killing civilians and innocent people and then make a movie about how their soldiers came back to America and felt sad about it. And this is pretty much the same thing, where it's like Oppenheimer kills all these like people and he feels sad about it, and then make a movie about it, and they're probably going to win him an Oscar. It's really funny. So I was like, ugh, do I really want to watch this? But it's Christopher Nolan. I know it's going to be made really well. I was definitely pleasantly surprised about a lot of the stuff that happened here. Some stuff I wasn't really crazy about. Like Rocky said, he wants to take his parents. I also want to take my parents to this movie, but like the nude scenes are a little aggressive and very awkward. So I don't think I will be doing that. I felt that was a little bit much, but we'll get into that.
They last enough to where I can get by with it with my parents.
Really?
It's only for like 2 scenes, and one of them is not actively a sex scene. It's mostly one where they're having a conversation. So I feel like that I can absolutely way worse stuff with my dad.
A conversation shirtless, like the breasticles are all out there, man.
I watched Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain with my dad. This is comparatively tame stuff.
All right. Well, my parents are a little more conservative.
Okay.
I don't know. So we'll talk about that. So overall, I definitely love this movie. Great experience, great filmmaking. It does seem a little like, there is a little bit of propaganda in this, but it's more of a, tale of a man. And based on what I know of Oppenheimer, before I watched the movie, I think it's pretty accurate to the things that people know about him. So I didn't see anything where I'm like, oh, they totally ruined that. That definitely didn't happen. I definitely think a lot of it was pretty fair from the documentaries I've seen and the stuff that I've learned in my classes. But my classes were definitely focused more on the difference between fusion and fission, which is the part that I really like. So if you don't know, fusion is when 2 nuclei bond together to release a lot of energy, and then fission is what they just discovered at the beginning of the movie, and that's when you have like one nucleus and you split it. So basically, you split the atom, and it goes into a chain reaction. what I really loved about that is when they explain it, the way they show it with the atmosphere, kind of just like in a chain reaction. The imagery is just amazing. Definitely love this. Fusion is something that is not invented yet, because in order for us to make something with fusion, we would need like 1,000,000 degrees, which is like the temperature of the sun. So fusion isn't something that we could kind of do at the moment, but fission is something that, you know, we do all the time. Nuclear reactors and stuff like that will always do stuff in
Oh,
in
wasn't
that.
there a new nuclear reactor that went online recently?
Yeah. And another thing that they mentioned in this movie, which I thought was cool, was the China syndrome. So if you know what the China syndrome is, something else I learned in my class is if a nuclear reactor melts down, it could potentially melt down to the core from like the US to China. That's called the China syndrome.
What?
Yeah.
My mind was thinking something else completely.
No, it's called China syndrome. So it's a meltdown from the US to China through the core. So it's a lot of cool stuff that I remember learning about in my classes, and definitely like I don't know them as well because, you know, it's been like 20 years, but like some of it did like bring back like, oh, they're doing differential equations here, they're doing this, they're doing quantum mechanics. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed this movie from the standpoint of like someone who likes history, someone who likes engineering, and then there's someone who likes the work of, you know, my colleague Christopher Nolan, who I was, you know, worked on a movie with. I was an extra in the Dark Knight Rises.
Wow. Calling him a colleague.
I called him a colleague.
I love it. I love it.
He directed me. He told me to slow down when I was running away. That counts, guys. That counts.
Sure.
But I did thought, like, you know, you couldn't catch any other country making a movie like this. Like, no one's gonna make a movie about how Osama bin Laden felt sad after 9/11. No one's gonna do that. So
You know what? That I would love to see that be the next Nolan project.
can you imagine?
Just
Can
Bin
you
Laden.
imagine? It's crazy. But yeah, had a little bit of mixed feelings, but I'm very happy I watched it. Someone's like, Anib, take it easy. I don't know if that's in reference to my Christopher Nolan comment or my Osama bin Laden comment. I don't know.
We're getting canceled. Oh my god.
I'm glad to be here to witness it.
Listen,
I ain't even
The whole
started.
time I thought it was gonna be you.
Yeah, and I
And
ain't even
suddenly it's gonna be
started either.
neat.
This is incredible.
listen, man. There's a lot of white savior in this movie, so we have to bring it down to a level. We got to call some things out. I just have to say what I have to say. All right.
Actually, yeah.
Like, don't you agree? Like, I mean, like, this is
No, there was one specific scene that I had a problem with, but we'll get into that soon.
there's a few. I
Yeah.
do think Christopher Nolan has a sensitivity chip missing when it comes to people of color. Like, a lot of his movies, number one, don't have a lot of people of color. Also, he whitewashes a lot of characters. Like, if you go to the Batman, Talia, Ra's al Ghul, Bane, all been whitewashed. And then if you go to Dunkirk, they left out like all the Daisies who were there under the British Army. Like, it was a big part of Dunkirk, and he just completely left that out. So I do think like Christopher Nolan does have a little bit of a blind spot when it comes to representation. And, you know, first time I saw him have a lead that was of color was Tenet, which I was like, all right, cool. Well, he's finally getting it, right? And then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make a movie about the 40s and the 50s. So all white
Thank
people
God.
again.
Thank God.
No one can call me out on it.
God damn it, Rocky.
All right. Now that we've evened the playing field, now we can start praising the movie. We can't just be all sunshine and rainbows. We can start praising the movies now because there's gonna be a lot of praising for it. The movie starts off with oh, by the way, spoilers. Ooh, should we go to commercial? It's over 10 minutes.
Yeah, we can do commercial now.
All right, guys, we are going to commercial. So, and we're back. All right, guys. So we are back, and we are going to start going into the movie. So we will be having spoilers. If you do not want to be spoiled for the movie, give us a like, give us a share, give us a great comment and review, and then come back and watch the podcast. It'll be fun. All right. The movie starts off with Oppenheimer in school, and he is actually not a great student, which is actually true. He was actually a great theorist, but he was not a good engineer. He couldn't do things physically. So he's like failing this class, and he's probably one of the worst in his class about it. And he gets so much shit from his teacher that he tries to poison him with an apple, a cyanide apple. Now, in real life, when the story is told, it's not cyanide, but Christopher Nolan was like, all right, what's the most easiest poison that people would understand? Cyanide.
Yep.
So he used cyanide. I heard that Oppenheimer's grandson was annoyed at this part because he thought that that part is a little fabricated, but there is some documentation of somebody said in some interview or something where this did happen. Whether that person made it up or not, who knows? But I thought that was really good. Also, pretty good imagery of, like, you know, using the apple and poisoning it and then having him instantly regret it, which is kind of like setting up the the movie and what's going on here, which I thought was really, really cool. And then he also gets to meet uh Heisenberg, which
Werner Heisenberg, yeah.
yeah,
First, you met Niels Bohr,
Oh, he
and
met
that was
Niels
the
Bohr.
guy who was going to get poisoned. I was like, oh shit,
Niels Bohr was
Bohr's going to
get
die this way.
I was like, I don't think so. Yes, that was wild. And then they meet Oppenheimer, who I'm sorry, not Oppenheimer, Heisenberg, which everybody knows from Breaking Bad, but engineers probably know him from the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and all of that stuff that he does, especially people who take in chemistry. Very cool to see that. What were your thoughts about Heisenberg's early years in Germany? Rocky.
So first thing I will say is that opening shot of him looking at the water ripples in the rain was probably one of the greatest shots I've seen this year. Just in terms of, like, thematically, how it recaptured everything at the end. Just a stunning opening shot of rainwater reflecting the nuclear chain reaction. And I'm sure as an engineer, you can give us a lot more insight into that. But I think what I liked most about this movie is when it sort of started, I was hooked in because I knew it was going to be a talkie film. But I think smartly, as I guess Nolan always does, he's intercutting between three different timelines. And you know, you get the sort of traditional biopic of him, just, you know, you taking you through the steps one way or another of his life, and then you get the Manhattan Project and everything that happened at Los Alamos and all that good stuff, which is the centerpiece of the film. And then you get that beautiful third act heel turn. It's based on a book called American Prometheus, something I read in high school ages ago. It's a very good read. It is lengthy though. It's a pretty long book, but it's a very good read. It's a pretty fast read. I would say it's pretty engaging from what I remember. But I think
nerd.
Yeah. Why do you think I'm here?
Right? The name of the show.
Yeah, I'm sure the listeners had no idea why I'm doing this recording at almost 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
Well, speaking of Prometheus, Prometheus is, you know, where they talk about he gave fire to the people, and because of that, he was punished. And it's kind of supposed to be what is represented in Oppenheimer, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they started off with that quote or that line about who Prometheus is, which I thought was pretty cool.
Also, since Jazz, we did get to see in 70 millimeter the actual film projection, the film stock. I guess it's about 11 miles long. The reel.
Yeah.
So so I guess to give a bit more on the technicality, it's really hard to shoot in 70 millimeter IMAX for the most part because the cameras are really big and they're really noisy. So they're usually reserved for nature photography. So what Nolan and Hoytema, who's the cinematographer, what they did was they essentially took it and started to do a lot of intimate photography. So a lot of what you see, especially in the scene where, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more once we get there, where, you know, people are chanting and clapping post bomb, when, you know, the camera really focuses in on a heavy close-up of face in the background. You know, it's sort of really interesting to see that blown up, and you really get to see the textures on an actor's face. And film composition projected, for the most part, you'll get a resolution like you've never seen before. I mean,
I heard they had to do that for the black and white scenes too, and that wasn't invented yet. They had to invent that or something.
So when you add sound to film, so, you know, when film was originally set up, normally I'm talking about back in, you know, the 30s and the 40s, and even, you know, a little bit in the 20s, the sound machine would be separate from the film because they were still trying to figure out like how to integrate both those things. So you would have almost two people pressing. It's like turning a nuclear bomb. You know, each person has a key, and you sort of turn it at the same time to sync up the movie. And then they were able to sort of figure out putting in a sound strip along with the main picture frame. And then for this one, they just did not have black and white photography for 70 millimeter, which they basically had to invent and then rescale it so you could wrap it around the actual reel so it could move smoothly along with the sound trip. So there's a lot going on in terms of like technicalities, and they're great YouTube videos to watch on it. But it's really sort of a technical marvel that we have this now.
Fascinating.
Cool. Jazz, what about you? What were your thoughts about the early years of Oppenheimer?
So this was really cool. Like the way he was visualizing everything from the beginning. He was a bad student, but then he ended up being great. Something I relate to because I was a horrible student, and then now I'm actually moderately successful. So
you're great. Tutti great, you're very great.
Yeah, no, but like I'm not joking, man. I was a bad student. At the end of my sophomore year in college, I almost got kicked out of UH.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I almost failed out. Like that's how bad I was.
Did you poison the professor?
No. I actually liked my professors. They were great. Go Cougs.
So if you did that, you could have been building the next bomb right now.
Whoa, easy there. Down, guys, on this podcast. Let's take it easy.
We're getting canceled for sure.
One thing that they don't mention is how privileged Oppenheimer was. He wasn't like this poor guy who got into like a school on a scholarship. His family was very rich. His mom was an artist. His dad was in the garment industry. They were very privileged. They were very rich. But he was still like a very unique kid where he would go to camp and like the kids wouldn't like him, but he would also bully a lot of the kids too. So it's kind of like a two-way street. And one time they locked him in a freezer and covered him in like green paint, like his whole body, like even his genitals, like crazy. So like he had some trauma as a kid for sure, but he was also rich. So his family was able to like put him in the best schools and get him the best education. And a lot of that came
send him to Europe for college.
Well, he went to Europe a lot because a lot of it is because he didn't like the people in the US who knew him. So he went there to reinvent himself. And that's where he got the hat and the pipe, and he came up with this like whole new image in real life. That's actually what happened to him.
The United States, we also didn't have like a quantum mechanics program
right
at the time. So if you wanted to study theoretical physics in general, Europe was the place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there was the first Pakistani to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize was actually there in Germany for that too. So that was really, really cool. I don't know if you guys, I forgot his name, Abdus Salaam, I believe his name is, which is a really interesting story because he was like supposed to be Pakistan's biggest hero, first Pakistani to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize, and Pakistan wouldn't claim him because
of course not.
Yeah, because he was Ahmadi. So they were like, you're not really Muslim. So on his grave, they have written the first Muslim to win a Nobel Peace Prize. And like people came in and they like erased Muslim on his grave. Like
that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So he's just the first person to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah. Well, he's technically like, still the first Pakistani, but you know, Pakistanis and Ahmadis, and they have issues with that.
It's not even just the Ahmadi community. It's like also like look at Malala Yousafzai, right? Like Pakistanis hate her. Like we just hate ourselves for some reason. It's so dumb.
It's not that they hate ourselves. It's just that there's a lot of people who believe conspiracy theorists, and they believe she's part of the U.S. government to kind of make Pakistan look bad, and she's like a puppet and a ploy for the West. And it's just really dumb and really bad. But yes, Malala is the second. So shout out to her. So we got two, which is pretty dope. So definitely like that. All right, now let's go back to the movie. In the movie, this is where we start seeing stuff in black and white and color and go back and forth. Now, a lot of people were a little confused about what was black and white, what was color. Because when we see Cillian Murphy, he is in color, and it's the past. It's everything that's happening in his like school in Germany. But then when we see Strauss, it's in black and white. And then when we see him again making the bomb, it's in color. So it's very confusing to a lot of people. And then like obviously you pretend like you knew it all along, but you go back online and you check what happened, and they say that it was because it was different perspective. One is from the perspective of Oppenheimer, the other is from the perspective of Strauss. And a lot of that is because Strauss, it was a kind of person who would see everything in black and white, in terms of like what someone's doing is wrong, what someone's doing is right. So I thought that was really interesting. And then in the beginning, they're in Princeton, shout out New Jersey, yay. He gets a job there. Strauss talks about being a shoe salesman, and then Oppenheimer calls him a lowly shoes salesman, and he goes, no, just shoe salesman, which is a hint to how the rumor is in real life that Strauss was actually really offended by a certain off-color comment that Oppenheimer made about him, and he held that grudge. It's like that Michael Jordan meme. Like, I took that personally. that's what happened with Strauss, right? And then Oppenheimer would humiliate him again at the Isotope court hearings and stuff like that. So man had a grudge. Man will hold a grudge. But I did like the scene where he goes and meets Einstein, and all the memes came out saying like, this is like the Avengers for like people who can do math. And I thought that was hilarious. He did make that scene so cinematic and so serious. Just Einstein there with his hat blowing off and him picking it up, and you're like, they're assembling the Avengers. This is what's happening.
I mean, it must have been a dream scenario for you guys, because you got them, you got Kenneth Branagh as Niels Bohr, you got the German actor who's actually from the Zack Snyder zombie movie that came out a couple of years ago on Netflix. I forget the actor's name, but who played Werner Heisenberg, and you've got Jack Quaid playing Richard Feynman.
Right.
It's
Rami Malek was in here, and I was like, yo, Rami Malek's a big name. How do they have him in here for like one scene, and then he comes out at the end with the save, and I'm just like, oh, like so many big stars. Even like the president from like Scandal is in here, and like you're just like, they got stars for everywhere. They brought Josh Hartnett out of retirement for this shit, man. Like, incredible. Same thing with Matt Damon. Matt Damon says, I'm not doing any more movies. I'm taking a break. Unless Christopher Nolan calls. And Christopher Nolan called, he's like, sorry, honey. That was the one stipulation.
The fact that he told his wife that during marriage counseling is incredible. No more movies unless Christopher Nolan calls.
That's so funny. The Nolan clause.
Are you on that same wavelength, Neebs? No more movies unless Christopher Nolan calls.
Yeah, same here for me, man. No more movies for me unless Christopher Nolan calls. I'll be an extra in his movies, even though right now they probably can just AI my scenes in The Dark Knight Rises and probably use me again for all his movies without paying.
Right. Well, the beautiful thing was like none of the major effects were visual effects. They created them through like sort of really unique magnesium flares, and they blew up ping pong balls and lit them up from underneath. So it was like some really cool, inventive, like special effects. Not to talk down on visual effects, because visual effects are amazing and you can do a lot of great things, and they do need a union. But that aside, I think visual effects has a capacity to make things a little safe, because you can just get whatever you want. And something that like Chris McQuarrie was talking about in Mission Impossible when they were wrecking the train at the end was, with CGI, you can sort of get anything that you want. So nothing really means as much. But if you actually sort of feel a tactile environment where things are moving and you feel the grit of it on the film, then, you get that sense of danger.
I also feel like practical effects last longer, even if they're not great. For example, like if you watch the older Star Wars movies, they're using puppets and animatrons. They still look decent. But if you watch The Phantom Menace, they use CGI, and that CGI does not pass the test of time.
There's a John Frankenheimer film from the 1960s called The Train, where it's just two trains that like collide against each other, and it's real, so it looks incredible in black and white photography. And that's, if it's real, it's always going to look incredible. Because there's no replacing it.
Right.
But I think we've reached such a high point with visual effects now, especially with James Cameron and all the lovely works the folks at like ILM and Weta and all those other companies are doing, that photorealism is not hard to achieve. So we got to find different ways to keep folks on their toes.
Yeah, Brown Boy, it looks like PS1 graphics. Yeah, you don't want it to look like PS1 graphics.
Well, counterpoint there. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. stunning
Incredible.
visually.
Yeah, stunning.
Like,
Okay.
and that was from 03 with CGI.
Well, they actually built models for a lot of those shots. It was a composite between like actual physical models plus CG. Whereas the Hobbit movies, they were all like 100%, you know, almost close to like 90% VFX.
Even the Hobbit trilogy was amazing though. Like it didn't look bad at all. But then
Depending on which corner of the internet you visit, that can have.
fair.
All right. So moving along, in later on in the movie, Oppenheimer starts going to these parties. He meets a lot of people. His brother, who is a communist, his brother's wife is also a communist, starts introducing him to people. He meets Shivlari, I believe, who's the guy. Chevalery, that's the guy. And he, you know, he introduces him. He becomes friends with him and friendly. He ends up being a big plot point later on because he is the person that tries to get information out of him to go back to the Communist Party, which gets him into trouble. So that's really interesting. And then he also meets Jean, who is played by Florence Pugh, and they seem to hit it off. And she is a psychiatrist who happens to be a little crazy, which I hear that's often for psychiatrists. Is really funny.
You know the joke there, right?
Yeah.
People go to psychiatry to find out what's wrong with them.
Exactly. Oh man. All right. So this is part of the movie where she starts getting a little weird. So they start hooking up. You know, things happen. One thing leads to another. You know how it is. And then Oppenheimer seems to lose his mojo, and she decides to pick up a book from his shelf and starts reading off the Bhagavad Gita and starts asking him to read off of it so he can get aroused, so they can have sex. Bro,
this is the one scene I had a problem with. This is why I gave it a 9.8.
I'm not even Hindu, but I thought that's got to be disrespectful.
I mean, I guess he's got to say that quote anytime there's an explosion, right? So I guess.
Yeah, no, that's obviously why they brought it in, right? Now, here's my issue with this scene. It was so rushed. Like this movie's already 3.5 hours.
You wanted more time with them.
Not that part, but the part of her going through the books on his shelf, like, oh, let me get a bit more of a feel of your political philosophy, and then eventually get to that. That would have been cool. But this whole scene felt very rushed to me.
It felt rushed to you. I felt like they shouldn't have this scene at all. I thought it was disrespectful. I thought it was pretty like I don't.
It was absolutely disrespectful. Do not get me wrong, but if you're gonna disrespect it, do it right.
What? Okay,
there's my hot take. If you're gonna disrespect the culture, disrespect it correctly.
I'm so as I guess I was raised Hindu, and growing up, I the first time I saw it, I kind of laughed out loud because I didn't quite believe that was how they were doing it. So I had a blast, but well, I guess in this case,
a blast.
But the
more than one way, huh?
Kind of adjusted. Well, the interesting thing about, I guess, the thing he quotes, which is, I guess, to give some folks some background, and this is me overtly simplifying the source text because it's a little more complicated than that. It involves it's a quote from Krishna where he's talking to Arjun, who's a prince. So it's basically a band of brothers who've had their kingdom taken away from them by their cousins. And Arjun's at the battlefield, and he's like, I don't want to fight these people. They're my family, you know. And Krishna sort of gets up and tells him that it's, as a warrior, you're not compelled by greed, but you're compelled by duty, by obligation. And that's sort of, I guess, the philosophy that Oppenheimer took to note. It's that, you know, he's got to do what he's got to do, not for fame, not for, you know, anything or what sort of he has to do it out of sheer obligation and or duty. And, you know, that's something I thought which was like an interesting way to look at.
Interesting.
Were you offended, Rocky?
I was not offended. I would no, but there are people who are offended though. They were there was some comments online from, but although I will say Oppenheimer, India is the only place where Oppenheimer outperformed Barbie.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Indians love Christopher Nolan.
Okay.
Like, I mean, when he was there in India to scout locations, and he's been there a couple times, I mean, the crowd is insane. It's like he's a rock star. It's incredible. Makes sense. He's it's the only country where I think, or pretty sure it's the only place where Oppenheimer's.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Most of the South Asian subcontinent had Oppenheimer beating out Barbie. Same with the Middle East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense because India had its own race for, nuclear weapons with Pakistan that was happening, which I feel like could be a story on its own. That could be a crazy story also. Yeah. So, Christopher Nolan presents The Partition.
We wanted more people of color. This is it. This is let's make it happen. Neebs, this is your next movie.
I will have my people reach out to his people.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, let's real quickly take a commercial break before we head into Act 2.
All right, we'll come back from commercials in 5, 4, 3, 2. And we're back, guys. Welcome back. All right, so now we're introduced to Leslie Grove, played by Matt Damon, which phenomenal. I think Matt Damon just kills it in this. And they go down to New Mexico, and they pick New Mexico because they feel like it's uninhabited. There's a lot of area. Oppenheimer would often go there with his brother. One thing
they're from there.
Yeah, and they're from there. But one thing they don't tell you is it wasn't technically uninhabited. There were people who lived in that area. There were Indians there. There was a lot of people who were exposed to a lot of things because of the testing, and they're called downwinders. You can look them up. There's still a lot of people who have been affected by that. So something I feel like the movie did get a little bit wrong. Jazz, what are your thoughts?
So these scenes were beautiful to me, man. Like just seeing the open field, seeing the horses, the rain, the sky, everything. It was just beautiful. This intro scene to Los Alamos, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you go to the movies, right? To sort of see this in a huge, wide sort of, cinema scope. I mean, the interesting thing about 70 millimeters, you cannot cut too fast because the screen's too big. And by the time your eye absorbs all the information that's on the screen, it takes a bit because it's just pretty big. So you sort of have to give them the breathtaking vistas for a while just to, get your mind and eyes acclimatized to what's being shown.
Yeah, totally. So we also get to meet Edward Teller, who is an important person in this story. He is the person who comes up with the calculations that lets people know that if they do this, there is a chance that when the air gets on fire and there's a chain reaction, this chain reaction can never stop. It may never stop, meaning oxygen is also just an element. There's atoms and stuff like that. If a chain reaction causes the atoms there to also split, there's oxygen in the atmosphere all over the world, and it could literally blow up the entire planet. And they were like, all right, let's take this to Einstein, and go back to him and figure out what we need to do. Definitely one of the biggest plot points in this movie. And this line was also mentioned in Tenet. It was mentioned in Tenet, which is kind of like, did Christopher Nolan already have an idea of what movie he was going to be working on after this, which people are speculating, which I thought was really, really cool. The visuals of that were just really, really great. And then Teller was the one person who was like, no, I don't think we need to make an atom bomb. We need to make a hydrogen bomb. And for those of you that don't know, it's crazy. Like, and the A bomb is basically what, like 10 to 15 kilotons. The H bomb is in megatons. It's in megatons. It's vastly bigger. It's like comparing millions to billions. It's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part was a little crazy. So
also, what an incredible performance by Benny Safdie as Edward Teller. I'm a huge fan of him as a director with his brother. Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler was incredible. Plus,
Uncut Gems.
Oh, sorry.
You never seen the meme Uncut Gems?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good. It was nice to see him in front of the camera for a change. Like, just great.
Yeah. So at this point, they have all the scientists in the room and they're talking about like how much plutonium they have, how much uranium they have, etc. It's really, really interesting because they had a lot more of one than the other. So they were using everything based on like plutonium, but even though uranium is like easier to work with. And then when they were building this thing, they would not use the word bomb. They would use the word gadget, which is why I called Jazz Go Go Gadget earlier in the episode. So they want to disassociate people's feelings.
Because I'm the bomb.
You're the bomb.
Yeah. They wanted to disassociate these people's feelings with that word because they were like, oh, it's going to make them feel bad. It's going to make them think about like what they're doing. Whereas gadget is a more of a scientific term. It's more like they're doing this for discovery, for science, for advancement. Definitely a, like a mind trick right there.
Was this to help us disassociate from jazz?
Yeah. Exactly. All right.
Nice.
We also noticed that Leslie brings in Klaus, who happens to be the leak. So the leak who gives up this information to the Soviets. Party, the Soviets, was actually not even brought in from Oppenheimer, which is ironic. But yes, and then at this time, we also see this meeting in black and white where Strauss and Oppenheimer meet, and it's in black and white, so we have to assume that it's from Strauss's point of view.
So from what I understand from what Christopher Nolan said, the color portions of the film are supposed to be from Oppenheimer's perspective, like a biopic. The black and white stuff is supposed to be an objective measure of like both characters, which is why he sort of tears them both down at the end when it all sort of comes together.
Okay.
All right. Based on what he said, but
of course.
Then what about the scenes with Strauss in the room by himself with his lawyers and stuff? I feel like that can't really be objective. That's kind of just like
so that's what I was curious about. I think what sort of got me the second time I watched it, which I thought was fascinating, was Alden Ehrenreich's character, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. He's the young Han Solo.
Yeah.
So he's sort of got an interesting character arc, and that's what I find sort of deeply fascinating about this movie, is that every minor character also has their own character arc, even if it takes sort of a long time to get to it.
Right.
And for him, it was, I think, coming in with, my boss is sort of an old heretic. I'm going to teach him how to run the cogs in Washington the new way. Then finding out his boss has been way ahead of him, and finding out that he's essentially walked into the cesspool of politics that is DC, and then finally sort of getting some some catharsis that he didn't end up getting that position, the cabinet position, but at the same time Oppenheimer's not exactly good either, and ultimately the tale is about multiple flawed men who were products of their environment, just like we all are.
What's really interesting is these scientists were treated like rock stars back in those ages, right? You never see that now, but yeah, these guys. Oppenheimer was on Time magazine. He was a rock star. His pipe, his hat, his eyes, those were like signatures of him, which I think is really, really interesting. And yeah, people were crazy like about these scientists, and it was a big deal. Which is why he kept on, having these affairs, and he was a philanderer and all of that stuff. And when his what is it, mistress, I guess she would be.
Jane Cadlock.
Yeah. When she dies, is such an incredible scene because she commits suicide and she puts her head down in water, and then she takes these pills, and then she puts the pillow on the floor. But then for a brief second, you see this glove on her head. And like that's 1 second is supposed to make you believe that maybe it wasn't a suicide, that it was murder. And that's real life. Her brother speculated and said a lot of times that he think the American government killed her because they wanted Oppenheimer to focus on the gadget, and they wanted the communist element away from that. For those two reasons, he thinks that they did it. And Christopher Nolan is so smart that he didn't even put that in the scene, except for one small, if you blink, you will miss a scene where she has gloves, like black gloves, and they're pressing down on her head. And you're like, oh, if you don't think too much about it, you just assume that it was her own hand, but it wasn't. That was really well done.
I'll be honest, I missed it
Yeah. What? How many times have you seen it and you missed it?
once.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Rocky's the one.
I think that's fair. I think there's a lot of information that movie has to throw at you.
Yeah. I noticed it, but I was like, "What just happened?" I was looking around. I was like, "Did anyone else see that?" I was like really.
I can confirm. I saw it too. It wasn't just a you thing.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I also did look up Alden's character. He doesn't have a name. He's just Senate aide.
Yeah, Senate aide.
Well, Senate aide had I thought a very interesting arc.
These amazing characters and actors that they have in here, and some of them are just so minor they didn't even give them names.
I mean, the last time he didn't even give the protagonist the name; he just called him protagonist. So we're lucky to get any names at this point.
That is true. All right, and then he's in this hearing, and then he has to describe his relationship with Jean, and basically when he does, his wife is just like giving him like dagger eyes and just looking right at him like murder eyes, and then she's imagining, like, they pan from the guy's head, and then like he's like shirtless, and then they pan again, and then like Florence Pugh's there, and I was like, all right, this seems a little excessive too. I'll let this one pass, but I was like, okay, again, and I've never seen Christopher Nolan do nudity. Like, I've never seen him do it, and I was just like, all right, maybe this is what it takes to win an Oscar.
I thought it was interesting from I thought this was the first Nolan movie to really dive into sort of subjective photography, in the sense of, because I think he is one of our last remaining directors to really understand how to show a scale. So he gives us a lot of great perspective shots, and I know the way the camera's positioned in that shot, and even the frame and the medium that he uses is very much from where Emily Blunt is sitting, and that's exactly what she's imagining when she's looking at him while he's sort of testifying, and it's a very sort of quick insert.
I thought it was just gratuitous, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, a little gratuitous, but I was like, all right, I guess so. They also had the scene where they were just kind of just sitting across from each other and just having a casual conversation naked, which as people tend to do.
As you do.
So I forgot what movie it was, but I think it was Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where like you should, whenever you're arguing with each other, you should be naked because it's hard to take each other seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe they watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Maybe that's what really happened. All right. So what else happened? He meets with Truman. No.
Well, I guess are we covering the actual testing?
I guess we have to. Yeah, let's go back to the actual testing, because I think he meets Truman later. But the whole setup with the bomb and the testing and the rain and the cinematography, I think, was incredible. And when they did the explosion, like, the light hits you way before the sound, which, like, incredible. My theater was dead silent, and there's only 3 movies in modern times where I can remember that happening. Number 1, Star Wars, where they go to light speed, the Hodor maneuver in The Last Jedi. Mission Impossible, when he jumps the freaking the cliff. And then this. Like, those are the 3 times where I can remember complete silent pin drop in a theater, and this was one of them.
So it's funny because I saw a TikTok recently where right when they pushed the button, some dude in theater yelled Allahu Akbar, and I was like, I'm dead.
I saw that TikTok too. I'm hoping they put it in post. I hope they didn't actually do that.
I thought it was hilarious.
We can't get away with stuff like that. Don't try it.
I'm not gonna try it, but it's still hilarious that somebody did it. Like,
I'm even scared to talk about this movie being a Muslim, man. Like, that alone is freaking me out.
That's great.
Rocky, I'll send it to you.
I'm just taking 10 seconds to myself just to enjoy that particular anecdote.
But yeah, like Rocky said earlier, no visual effects, no special effects. Like, and then when the rumbling started, you're like, whoa. Like, I watched it in Dolby, and Dolby, like, I think, in my opinion, has some of the most incredible sounds. you could hear the vibrations. It was crazy.
I'm gonna give Ludwig Göransson a shout out too, because the score is just masterful.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way through. I mean, even doing the Trinity testing scene, the screeching violins and cellos, almost sort of this Baroque style sort of level of classical music. It was outstanding. Till you sort of the stretching of the strings till you couldn't hold in the tension anymore on the
Yeah.
instrument and in the film.
And the entire score doesn't have any drums, so that it builds up to this point where you hear like all these explosions and stuff. And the other reason they didn't have drums is because drums is very like synonymous with military, and they didn't want people to make that Oppenheimer was a military man. He was a scientist first and foremost, which is another reason they didn't have drums in the score, which I thought was really interesting.
I mean, when they sort of, I guess initially when you hear the drums and you think it's drums before they transition it to stamping feet and claps,
Yeah.
which was, I thought, an incredible motif to go from what was supposed to be praise to just complete self-reflection and dejection internally.
Yeah.
On what he's done. I mean, that entire sequence, I think, of him talking to the crowd is probably, you could make an argument that it's the best directed sequence of Chris Nolan's career.
I would agree with that.
The long lenses, which blur the background really well. You get the clarity of the foreground, you get the blurred in the background, the camera flashes, which they use real tungsten bulbs to sort of recreate a nuclear type flash, plus the skin erosions as you sort of move through the crowd. Just that entire sequence was incredible. Sound design, all of it.
Yeah, the acute radiation poisoning, also top.
Yeah, all of it. It was great to watch.
So the scene where whatchamacallit, I was gonna say where they have him in the train early on. They did the same thing there too, because it's like a really early scene where he's like on a train with another person, another Jewish character, and
right,
talking.
Yeah.
And you can see him take like a seat back, and you can see like the cushion just like vibrating right behind him while his face is still. And that's the first time I saw that, and I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And then you see it again in that audience scene, which I thought was wild.
And you're not going to really get that level of scope because they're using what's traditionally lenses that are used for, again, like to photograph nature and these giant vistas and pushing them right in the face of the actor. So you're getting sort of incredible intimate photography of the human face and human textures to really get that, drive home that emotion. It's great.
Yeah. True. We got to learn what the skincare routine is because their skin was immaculate.
All right. So at this point, so let me ask you, does the speech that Oppenheimer give in front of the crowd, does that happen before he drops the bomb or after they drop the bomb?
It happens after they drop the bomb.
Okay, so let's go back before they were dropping the bomb and talk about like the Harry Truman conversation where they're trying to decide where to drop the bomb, and they're just so casually going like, not Kyoto, me and my wife honeymoon there, which is actually a line that was ad-libbed and is also a real life thing that happened, which is wild. One of the actors, I believe, like read in his research that this person did that, and they just threw it in there. That's crazy.
I mean, talking about calling out white people, I mean, that was a scene for all of us right there in terms of, we honeymooned there, so that's probably not a good spot to drop that one. Might be going back.
Well, I mean, historically speaking, Kyoto and Tokyo were mostly destroyed by this point from the carpet bombing they were doing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
like,
true.
I mean, it's like it sounds like, oh, it's already dead, so why bomb it? Like,
no,
it's gonna bomb more people. Like, it sounds bad, but like that's exactly what happened.
No, Jazz, that is exactly what happened, but there's more to it. So this is the thing that the movie got wrong. Oppenheimer was a lot more involved in the decision of where to do that. They had decided where to drop the bombs before they were carpet bombing. They did that on purpose because Nagasaki and Hiroshima are so flat. They wanted to understand the full force of the bomb. They didn't want a land where like there'd be mountains and stuff like that. They needed a flat land so they can demonstrate how powerful the bomb is. So they purposely did not bomb any of those areas because they wanted people to see how powerful this bomb is. And Oppenheimer was the person who came up with that idea. So he was very much involved in that. And I think they
Jason Clarke's character, was it Rob something? I forget his last name. He plays the lawyer at the deposition at the end. He makes a mention of that at the end of the film, where he talks about you were involved in picking the
right.
Roger Rob.
What's the word? Roger Rob. Sorry, yeah. What's the? I'm missing the word. Targets. There we go. And picking the targets for where to, for lack of a better phrase, deposit the A bombs.
Deposits.
Yeah.
I'm dead. Just like everybody in Hiroshima.
Oh God!
It's,
all right,
there's a line that's gonna get us canceled.
It was wonderful getting to close out this podcast with you, lovely folks.
listen.
How about we take a commercial break real quick?
All right, we'll go into commercial break and then we'll come right back. So commercials in 5, 4, 3. And we're back, guys. All right. So we did talk a little bit about the scene in where Oppenheimer was talking to the audience and telling them that everything was successful and we did this and we brought our boys back home. And that was a real reasoning for a lot of the stuff that he was doing, because he was a Jewish person and we can't discount his Jewish experience because he knew what the Nazis were doing there. And there is a line where they say, I don't know if we can be trusted with the bombs, but we sure as hell knows the Nazis can't. Right. And I was like, wow, okay, fair. But the Nazis had already surrendered by the time the bomb was ready. And they were just itching to use it on somebody. They were looking for an excuse to use it. And then Pearl Harbor happened and they were like, okay, now
Pearl Harbor happened way before. But
way before.
Yeah, before. But it gave them an excuse or just to say okay, we can do something, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then after he uses it, he seems to have this little, change of heart. And a lot of people were like, well, now that you're the big rock star and you're the father of atomic bomb, now you change your mind. Now you want to do this because you don't want someone else to get bigger credit and stuff like that. So that's a lot of the stuff that they're saying, which they were already starting to develop the H-bomb, which is what Strauss wanted. And then we see a lot of the stuff where Strauss wants to get his, I believe, security clearance, removed, and all of that stuff is happening. What were your thoughts about the whole court case between Oppenheimer and Strauss part of the movie, Rocky?
I thought it was fantastic. It's sort of borrows heavily from sort of Oliver Stone's JFK, very procedural stuff. It's incredible. And I think what I liked about it is I had a bit of a background, and I was talking to a friend of mine who had not read the book and did not have too much context with the characters. And they sort of said that, look, when the Trinity test happened and then, there was the aftermath, and after he met Truman, there was a little lull in the film. And I was wondering why it's dragging for so long. And then it was sort of like the heel turn in the third act that brought the film home, and which was, he's not a hero and perhaps he's not a villain. It's more of humans are a little more complex than that. They're, you sort of, when you're in the midst of something and you're so project focused, you don't tend to think of, I guess, the causality of events until much after, and what happens then. And I think the big takeaway, I guess, for me is just how human those people were. We were so sort of far removed from history, and you look back at sort of any historical, what we would deem great figures, and the statue comes before the person. And I thought this was one of the very few biopics where the person came, where they built the statue, they broke it down, and then they pushed the person in front of you.
Yeah. I also feel like it also had a lot of social network vibes where you see right, you see the Mark Zuckerberg character in front of a court, and then you go back and find out what's happening, and you keep going back and forth between that. I thought it borrowed a little bit from The Social Network, which is one of my favorite movies, and I really, really liked that. I thought that was really, really cool. I like how Strauss orchestrated this whole thing, and at the end we find out that he screwed himself just as much as he screwed over Oppenheimer, which I thought was interesting. We got Rami Malek's character coming in at the end to kind of just testify against him. and kind of just turn on Strauss, which I thought was pretty interesting. What was your opinion on that little twist? Which, like, I mean, it is history, so it's not really a twist, but
Yeah.
like, it's still a twist.
No, it's great. I was sort of I guess it's been a while since I read the books. I was wondering where Rami was going to come back, because I was like, he's won best leading actor. There's no way they're using him for just 2 minutes as a background actor. And then he came back and did the monologue. I was like, okay, so here it is. Okay, so he did his. I thought it was great. I think it was like photographed really well in terms of like keeping things sense. Also, like, just incredible job on the editing. I mean, there's a lot of information to pack in this film over 3 hours, and like, Tim Burke, the special effects guy, like, incredible job. I mean, just the whole technical team all around, I think, was just like incredibly impressive. Like Jennifer Lame, who's the editor, she's done she's done Wakanda Forever and a couple other projects as well. She's one of the best, I would say, in terms of understanding tonal quality and in terms of understanding mood. Just to pack all of this into a 3-hour feature is incredible. She's something.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jazz, what do you think about the way it ended and the way the whole court case ended?
So there's a reason I'm going to get a Captain America shirt today. And
Because we won.
It's not yes because we won. Yes. USA. No.
Captain America. Yo, since we talk about Marvel, fun fact: Howard Stark, Tony Stark's father, worked on the Manhattan Project. That's canon.
That's canon.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways, the reason why I'm wearing the shirt is like, back in the day, everyone really did put country above, your friends and everyone else. Like, for that betrayal to happen, he absolutely put the country before anybody else there. Because, I mean, he really would have died in that era and he could have gotten away with it. But Rami Malek's character, like, straight up, he gambled and the country was better off because of it. And it was the truth, which was great. And so that's why I wore the shirt. Because, like, I wish we could go back to that, but we live in a completely different era now.
Well, fun fact: his security clearance, Oppenheimer, was just reinstated back in 2022.
Oh, so he can go back now. That's
well,
cool.
he can't go back now, but like posthumously, whatever it's called, it's more symbolic. It's more symbolic. It's not like he could be a zombie and have his clearance back.
Hey man, they just gave us aliens, so zombies are next.
Zombies are next. I mean, remember the bath salt incidents in Florida? You never know.
Let's get him back. Wasn't there an Einstein quote that I do remember where he says, Oppenheimer's fallen in love with a woman that just doesn't love him the same way and has rejected him, and that's the U.S. government. Or there's a quote to something similar to that.
Yeah. Also, when Oppenheimer does his speech and he leaves that building, and then Einstein pops out behind a bus. I was dying. It was very Captain America in Infinity Wars. He just was behind the bus. It was so wild. I love that scene.
Also, I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet, but Robert Downey Jr., man, incredible.
Oh, phenomenal.
If anybody doubted that he could act, then man.
I'm so glad he's back making real movies again. This is lovely.
What? Are you think Tropic Thunder isn't a real movie?
That's fair. Tropic Thunder is incredible. I will defend Tropic Thunder to the grave. Tropic Thunder is a stone cold masterpiece.
It is.
Be careful with the blackface there.
Well, that's the point of the movie, right? That's I love new people discovering Tropic Thunder and like having the initial freak out and then sort of
he's the dude playing a dude disguised as another dude. Man.
So we Jr. introduced him at his I guess the Oscar reel when he was nominated for Best Supporting for that role. Incredible.
Oh my god, that's just hilarious. All right, let's move forward a little bit. So we go back a little bit into the future, and we see Lyndon B. Johnson give Oppenheimer an award. Teller's there. He shakes Oppenheimer's hand. Oppenheimer's wife would not shake his hand, which is actually something that really happened in real life, and he wrote about it, and he was really sad about that. Oppenheimer also, he said to Oppenheimer, "I'm sorry," and he goes, "Based on what you said, I don't even know what that means." So that was like a comment that Oppenheimer said to him. So it's really interesting. And then we have like this dope ending where Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein, they go back to that flashback once more, and you finally find out what they were talking about. And he goes like, when I came and we thought that we could, destroy the world. And Einstein goes, what of it? I believe we did. Close. Just wow.
Phenomenal.
Wow.
Phenomenal.
What a way to end it.
And that score, man. That it's I believe the initial track is called "Can You Hear the Music." I think it's the end of that track. But yeah.
Someone said like, is there an end credit? And then like someone replied, yo, we're living it.
Accurate.
Yeah. I mean, like part of it is a biographic, but there are parts of this where I'm like, this is a horror movie. It's almost like horror-esque, which is pretty wild.
I think what I'm really glad about is that not only are people watching it and people are talking about it, I think Barbenheimer, the whole concept is great because we don't really get too much counter programming for adults anymore. And I was sort of scared when this was first announced that like people would not go watch it. And I'm sort of the opposite of the gatekeeper, where I want people to like watch the stuff that I watch and talk about the stuff that I watch. And so now that's finally happening. I was over at like a couple of bars the other day, and I was hearing people talking about the film, discussing it, and I was just like, couldn't be more thrilled.
I'm looking at this comment by Brown Boy Wonder. He goes, "The atomic bomb will return in World War III." like an Avengers credit.
It's happening.
Oh my god, that is so funny.
All right, can we take bets on who's gonna start World War III? Is it gonna be Russia? Is it gonna be Pakistan? Is it gonna be?
Maybe someone will play you in the movie, Nabes. Maybe that's what will happen.
Mm.
You're an engineer, so you might be called up to head this thing.
True, and then I'll have to have like the feel bad and then someone can make the movie about me.
Do you have a lot of left leaning political beliefs?
I am a very centralist person. I'm somebody who's like, hey, you give me some good points and I'll switch. You give me enough good facts and I'll switch teams. That's my motto.
There we go. So you're in the clear. Your security clearance should be fine.
Yeah. The government wants me to be this way. I'll be that way. As long as it didn't go against like my core morals, really. But yeah,
no, that's a problem, Neebs. You gotta get rid of those.
Yeah. Well, speaking of core, like an apple has a core. I like to go back to that Apple imagery where he's like, he puts the cyanide in the apple and he becomes dangerous and then he regrets it. And this is something that basically happens. And like the apple is basically knowledge. And he puts this bad thing in the knowledge, and now everybody has this knowledge to kind of do this. Like once you put the genie out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. And the thing is, the only saving grace they really had was that if they didn't, the Germans would have done it first. I don't know, but he is actively.
No, that's facts.
Yeah, I mean, it is facts for sure.
So I think there's like two sort of moral quandaries. I think the first question is, should we have built the bomb? And the second one is, should we have used the bomb?
Yeah,
those are two separate questions. I think it's almost as a, you can have a tool in the toolbox, but you don't have to use it.
Yeah, especially when the war was won in Germany already. So I don't know.
Yep.
We'll see. All right, we're gonna go to one last commercial break, and we're gonna come back with Easter eggs. I don't know how else to explain that, but
Easter eggs.
There's Easter eggs in this movie. As an engineer, there's some science Easter eggs. There's some like cool information here. So we'll be back in 5, 4, 3, 2. And we're back, guys. All right, so we're gonna wrap up this podcast, and we're gonna go through some fun. I don't know if they're all fun. some of them are fun.
We have the best descriptions of this movie.
Oh man,
great fun stuff.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so the scene where Oppenheimer is basically doing the speech and we see people's like skin coming off, that's his daughter. That's Flora Nolan.
Yeah.
That's a cool fact.
Christopher Nolan's daughter, right?
Yeah, Christopher Nolan's daughter. I thought that was cool. And he was like, when you're doing something that destroys the world, if you put your family in it, you feel a little bit more like, oh no, like you feel the danger in it. So
there's a reason every Christopher Nolan's protagonist loses his wife, because that's what he's most scared of.
Yeah. Oh wow, interesting.
Every single one. You go all the way from Memento on. And
All right.
That
All right.
hits deep.
All right, cool. The other thing was you see the couple kind of having like making out under the bleachers in that one scene. That's supposed to symbolize the baby boomers because that's when the baby boomers kind of just the population exploded with the baby boomers. That's when that happened. That was really interesting.
I mean, what else was there to do in that era?
I guess, right? Yeah. The part where Oppenheimer goes, I have blood on my hand, and then Truman kind of throws him out of the office and like never let that scientist crybaby back in the office. That's actually what happened, word for word. That's there. Like that was pretty crazy.
What did you think of Gary Oldman as Truman?
I didn't even know it was Gary Oldman until like halfway through it. I was like, that person looks so familiar, and then I was like, oh my god, that's Gary Oldman. That's Commissioner Gordon right there.
That's Commissioner Gordon.
That was fantastic, though. The way he said it's like you didn't do shit. I dropped the bomb. Like,
the people in Nagasaki don't care who built the bomb; they care who dropped it.
Yep. There's also a reference to scorpions that was in the movie, which was supposed to represent, I believe, Oppenheimer and Strauss, two scorpions at ends who ends up destroying each other. So it's kind of like how Oppenheimer was kind of being destroyed by Strauss, but Strauss really ended up destroying himself also. So that was kind of interesting. Also, the reason Christopher Nolan decided to do this book is because Robert Pattinson actually gave him a book of speeches of Robert Oppenheimer, and that's what inspired him to make this movie, which I thought was pretty cool.
I love Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, and speaking of Batman, Josh Hartnett was a finalist to be Batman, and he actually turned it down, and he said it's one of the worst mistakes that he's ever made because he wanted to work with Christopher Nolan, and now he finally got to work with him. So it's like a full circle moment.
Good for him.
Cillian Murphy auditioned for Batman too. You can see the audition.
Yeah, that's out there too. We were missing Michael Caine in this movie, Brown Boy Wonder thing in the comments. Yeah, there was no Michael Caine. Also, when he goes J. Robert Oppenheimer and somebody asks him what the J stands for, he goes nothing. That's not actually true. The J stands for Julius.
Julius, yeah.
Yeah.
Julius Robert Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Yep.
What a name.
Yeah,
incredible name though.
Yeah. And one of my favorite little insight fun fact was when he tries to distract the guy from eating the apple. What was his name?
Niels Bohr. Yeah.
Niels Bohr. He starts bringing up wormholes. The same wormhole that are part of the story used in Interstellar.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So that's a pretty cool fun fact. I like that one. See, some of these are fun. They're not all bad.
Yeah, wormholes are great.
That last one's actually fun. Yeah.
All right. This one maybe not so fun. So in the movie, Oppenheimer goes in 1 hour and 58 minutes. We will find out if like the bomb goes off. The bomb actually goes off 1 hour and 58 minutes into the movie, to the exact minute. That's crazy.
That's actually cool.
Yeah. And
I'm just imagining people in the movie theater with a stopwatch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the scientists that came to watch the test was Enrico Fermi, and Fermi is known for the Fermi paradox. If you don't know what that is, Fermi, yeah. So basically, it's like, why is there no intelligent life on other planets? And the paradox is that if there was, they would inevitably wipe themselves out, which is kind of like what we could be doing with the bomb. So cool little fun facts here and there about the movie. Some of them fun, some of them not so fun, but that's all we got. Yes, someone said the Josh Hartnett resurgence is here. He was also in a new episode of Black Mirror. That we actually covered that episode of Black Mirror, and it was wild. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I can't remember which one it was, but yes.
It's the space one. It's the one where the guys are in space and then they have these like surrogates, I guess, like these robot surrogates that like
androids.
Yeah. And then he kills that other guy's wife. Oh my god, that was crazy.
Yeah. Wild. That was during Paul's episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have for this episode. Anything else that we did not cover? Is anything else you guys want to say that we haven't covered yet? Rocky.
No, nothing other than that. Like, it's a genuine technical marvel. It's a brilliantly made film. We don't get these pretty often, and I think when we do, we should definitely go support them. So definitely go watch it.
For sure, for sure. What about you, Jazz?
Yeah, I'm gonna go see it a second time. Like now that I have a bit more background on it, like these little things I should look for. I'm
Mhm.
gonna be the guy in the theater with the stopwatch. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it again.
Yeah. Well, if you're not over this Oppenheimer hype, there is a movie. I forgot what it's called. Something and the Fat Boy is called. It's about Oppenheimer. There's a TV show about Oppenheimer called Manhattan. That is popular too. And there's a documentary on Hulu about Oppenheimer. So there are places where you can still get some more information. The documentary is really, really good. And so is the show Manhattan. I think one of the actors in here is actually in the movie also, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, if you're still not over it, you should definitely check them out. And it's a cool little part of history, a sad little part of history, a dark little part of history. But it's our history. So it is what it is.
Facts.
Yeah. And Brown Boy said that this should win best sound design. Yes, we totally agree. I would
100%.
It's gonna win a lot more, honestly.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the Oscars have combined sound editing and sound design now, which is annoying, but it is what it is.
There's a lot of people that I could say. I think like it's just the Oscars might be between this and Leonardo DiCaprio's new movie.
Killer of the Flower Moon. Killers of the
Yes.
Flower Moon. The
I
Scorsese.
think
Yeah.
I think it's going to be between those two, because Robert Downey Jr. could get something for supporting cast.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling's probably going to be up for it.
That is going to be so wild. Ryan Gosling and Robert Downey Jr. for these two
very
movies.
different performances tonally.
I'm just Oppenheimer.
I would love to see a version of that song. I would. What would be his version of "I Am Knuff"?
I am Knuff. I don't know.
I am death.
I am death.
I am become death. Oh God. All right. With that, I think that's where we're gonna end it off. Thank you everybody for listening. This was a great episode. Please, like, share, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. And until next time, guys, Salaam nerds.
Peace.